Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, getting set up here in Washington ahead of game time for Packers versus Commanders. We are about 3 hours away here from kickoff. To get started here in just a little bit here in our nation's capital. And a lot of questions surround the Packers as they head into this game. A lot of questions surround the Packers from the past couple of days. I know one of the biggest questions yesterday came because David Bakhtiari was placed on the injury report on Saturday, where he had not really been um, considered all week. And so immediately we have some questions coming in. So let's just hop right into them. Tyler asked, if Bach is out, is Royce the right guard? I think so. Because what they'll have to do is put Josh Nyman at left tackle, and from there just kind of go with what their plan already was on the offensive line. And so that would probably see Newman stay at right guard, um, leave Elton there at guard, and because like I said, they're going to have Josh Nyman at left tackle if David Bakhtiari can't play. David Bakhtiari showing up on the injury report on Saturday was a little surprising because he had been on it during the week, but he's sort of always on it at this point as a limited participant. But he practiced all week, and that was something that we didn't even think he would do anymore. We didn't think he would ever practice 3 days again, and he practiced all 3 days. And maybe that was the issue, like putting too much pressure on that knee. But we'll kind of see. They'll get ready to go through warm-ups here starting soon. So we'll kind of be watching the field to see if he goes through warm-ups, and seeing how he feels, if that knee can take it. And if not, as we said, probably see Josh Nyman at left tackle, and then to answer your question, Royce at right guard, and kind of status quo from there. As we said, Packers getting ready to take on the Commanders. Craig, with the question of the day, which Packers team is going to show up today? That's a very good question, Craig. And there are very few get right games in this league, but I think this is one of them. And this is a Washington team that has a really, really stout front four, which we'll hear from the players on in just a minute. Has a very stout front four, but not a ton else going for it. Taylor Heineke will be the starting quarterback today. He has given Green Bay some fits before. He brings a challenge, but this will also be the first game he will have played this season. And so, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith should be able to tee up on him and kind of get after him in theory. But from top to bottom, this Packers team is more talented than this Washington team. Do they take advantage of it is the question. As we said, they do have a very, very strong front four. Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne. If Chase Young was playing, it would be a front four of all first rounders. But Chase Young is still out while he's recovering from his ACL tear. But what they do in the game could determine how this Packers team goes, because it's going to be that Washington front four versus a Packers offensive line that has been suspect at times, as we've seen this year. This Commanders front four is tied for fourth in the league in sacks with 19, and I believe they lead the league in quarterback hits. And so can Aaron Rodgers stay protected? Can he work out of the pocket when he needs to, or work if he gets outside of the pocket? Will he have enough time? Can his receivers get open for him early enough for him to get the ball out? There's a lot of questions surrounding the Packers team today because of this Washington front four. Let's hear what the guys had to say about them this week.
They're really good, really good. I mean, there's a lot of first-round picks on there. They got 5 guys with 3+ sacks. They get a lot of push up front. It's a solid defense front to back.
I mean, I think they got a lot of talent up there, a bunch of high-caliber guys, and you can tell they definitely invested in their front four and stopping the run, penetrating. So I think it's really important for us to be stout up front at the running backs to help out when we can get a chance to get a chip or something on the way out to routes, and really just take care of protection.
I mean, it's a bunch of guys on their defense that play relentless regardless of the circumstances. They always play hard. They don't always finish to the end of the game. They're not going to let up. They're not going to lay down. They're going to play hard. Playing with Jonathan and Payne and going to high school and playing with, and no one sweat. I just know those guys play hard through the end of the game. They're going to play through the whistle, and they're going to fly around, and they're going to try to do whatever it takes to make a play for their team.
When you do have something like that, or when you have a front four like that, though, how much harder is it to just stay committed to the run when you get stood up the first few times?
Yeah, I don't call the plays, so for me, whenever the runs are out there, I'm going to go ahead and do them, but I think it's one of those things. I've been on teams before in the past, obviously not in the NFL, but with the run, 9 out of 10 times you're never going to have it where they're always hitting. So it's going to be a little bit, and then you'll hit one. And I think in the run game specifically, if you kind of stick with that, and you got a lot of confidence in your run, then eventually you'll hit one. So I think it's obviously you got to give respect where it's due. They got a good front four, but I think we got a lot of great guys on our side, and I'm looking forward to them moving the line of scrimmage.
I thought what A.J. Dillon there really kind of spoke the loudest. He said, you've got to just stay confident in it, and because the first 9 might not hit, but the 10th one might. And that seems to have been something that has hindered the Packers this year, is after the run game, if it doesn't work for a couple of plays, it feels like they get away from it too quick. And so will they stay committed even against a tough front four? Or do they take advantage of a lesser secondary? But even then, you've got to be able to run the ball to kind of set up the pass. Randy asked, will Watkins be ready to go? So Sammy Watkins was activated from the injured reserve yesterday. He is on the active roster. They activated him from the injured reserve and then put him on the injury report, which was not that surprising. That feels probably like it would be standard in that situation just because he'd be coming straight off of IR. He is listed as questionable. However, Randall Cobb was also placed on injured reserve yesterday, which not that Randall Cobb would have been ready for today with that ankle injury, but Christian Watson is still going to be out. And so down that many receivers, I wouldn't be surprised if Sammy Watkins plays because he says he feels ready. And he's been running full speed for a couple of weeks now. He was out at practice this past whole week, but he'd been running full speed in his rehab the week before. And so if he feels ready, again, the players will start warm-ups here in just a few minutes. If Sammy Watkins feels ready, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him out there. And just having him out there, I think, could at least threaten a deep field shot, whether or not they'll take it. And I know that there's some disagreement as to whether or not Sammy Watkins still has earned the defense's respect to guard him as a downfield shot, but that he can provide it. And so I think the threat is at least on the fringes there. Let's see. We got a couple more questions coming in. Tyler asked, is this the game they play a complete game? This would be the game to do it, Tyler. I think if they lose today, you're kind of in a rebuilding mode for the rest of the season. Let's see. We've got Rebecca asked, is it best to run power 8 at this Washington defensive line? It's not a bad idea because your entire game plan has to be counteracting that front four. And so whatever it sort of takes to do that, that's what your entire game plan is around today, not necessarily what you want to do on offense, but how do you negate that front four out of the game? Let's see. Let's jump into some questions about the defense because I know we've got those coming here. So this defense is facing, as we said, Taylor Heineke at quarterback, who is a backup, has not played yet this year, but gave Green Bay some fits last year. He went in Lambeau Field last year and went 25 for 37 for 268 yards, a touchdown and interception. And then really where he hurt him was 10 carries for 95 yards. And so he presents a challenge just every time he steps on the field because he can scamper, which a lot of quarterbacks can do, but he can also really work outside of the pocket so well. And he's tough, which is what a lot of the guys had to say about him this week, that as the biggest attribute to his game. Let's hear from them on Taylor Heineke.
for me, I know. So look at the film from last year. Played against him last year. You know, he's much more of a scrambler. So D-line, standing rush lanes, no like rush smart. Like that's all I'm saying. And we know as a back end, we got a plaster.
He was a guy that, he can make a lot of plays with his legs. Of course, he's a quarterback in the NFL, so he can throw. That's an automatic gimme. But he made a lot of plays with his legs. He had a lot of scrambles that, kept drives alive for their team. And I know he can make a lot of plays that can hurt defenses if you don't contain them.
Scramble. I think last year he ran for like 100 yards on us or something like that, close to about it. So,
I mean, what is it about him that just kind of like puts people back on their heels a little bit? Is it just the scrambling? Because plenty of guys can do that.
yeah, you can scramble, but playing man is hard because everybody backs towards him. So you don't really see him. A few times last year where I turned around like thinking that the ball should be in the air by now, and he was like running at me full speed. And I was like, oh shit, he's running. So just that.
Oh, you focus in on that because he's capable. I just remember last year's game. He had a good amount of rushing yards on us last year.
95.
Yeah, about to say I thought it was a blue face, but just coming in, just being much more aware and know what he can do with it, and just pretty much lock in on that to where he's able to get as last year almost a blue face on us.
I think Heineke, what I like about Heineke is he has a bunch of confidence. He's a savvy vet. So, he confident, I'm confident. So let's do it.
He's confident, I'm confident, let's do it. I don't think that means Jair Alexander is going to be on Taylor Heineke all day. But who will? And this is a good question here from Rebecca on that very subject. Is it worth having Quay Walker spy Heineke? That's not a bad idea at all, because where Quay Walker has sort of been taken advantage of the past few weeks is getting tricked out, especially in like the short passing game and in the run game. So, would it be more useful to just let him keep his eyes in the backfield? It might be helpful for him, and it could benefit the defense because Quay Walker's very, very fast, and he's big. Taylor Heineke is not a big guy, but as you heard the guy saying there, he's not afraid to just lower his shoulder and try to run you over. And so with the combination of Quay Walker's speed and size, could he be sort of the good counteract there to Taylor Heineke? That's a really, really good question, Rebecca, and something I wouldn't be surprised if we do see today. And that would probably have to do more with the scheme that the Packers seem to be playing in now. Joey asked, do you think the defense will continue to play man predominantly or go back to zone? I think they will continue to play man. They probably should. This is one of those games where you can play a little more zone just because of what the quarterback's doing. But the man scheme worked so well against the Jets. I say so well, they still lost. It worked so much better than the first 5 weeks that it's going to be hard to justify going away from that, because the players went to Joe Barry. They told him, this is what we want to do. Joe Barry told us that, a coach would be, his words, foolish not to listen to guys like Adrian Amos, Jair Alexander, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark. And so after the game against the Jets, you saw like a much more cohesive defense. And Rasul Douglas even told me this week, and I think we're going to hear from him in just a minute, but Rasul Douglas told me this week that, they told Joe Barry after the game, like, hey, we really liked that plan. Like that worked. And so can we go with that again? At the end of the day, the players can't make the final call. That does have to be Joe Barry. But I think the fact that they have weighed in so heavily is gonna make a big factor in that decision. Robert asked, do you see the Packers, can they win the turnover battle today? That's been quite arguably one of their biggest issues. They are -4 in the turnover margin. The offense has given up 8. Defense has taken only 4. They've only had 1 interception all season. It was against the Bears in week 2. Jair Alexander's right there at the end of the game. And when you, I I knew an old coach that used to say, win the turnover battle, win the game. And so they've been able to win some games without winning the turnover battle. They've been able to win some games because they won the turnover battle. You look at Tampa, that was a close game. They won the turnover battle in that game. I think they got 3 fumbles off of Tampa or something like that. And so they come in bunches is the best way to describe it. They can be, almost like hitting is contagious, turnovers are contagious. And so I think if you can get one, the floodgates will open. Because of the way Taylor Heineke plays, he plays a little fearless. That can work in your favor if you're a defense with tips and overthrows. If you can go after the tips and overthrows, you can get those are what lead to easy interceptions, and easy interceptions are what lead to sorry about that, are what lead to the harder interceptions. And so can you take advantage of that today with Taylor Heineke? This is a good chance to do that. Let's see. Rebecca asked, "Are special teams get back on track this week? Any changes in protection personnel? Nixon does more returning." Nixon was a great returner for them last week. He only brought one out, but he knew which one to bring out. He had good vision. I think he was one shoestring tackle away from breaking that thing for a touchdown. As far as the changes in protection personnel, I don't think that breakdown was necessarily like a sign of bad things to come. I think it was more of an anomaly because it was Rich Bisaccia took the blame and called it a misprotection call. When you watch the play back, you can see pretty clearly what happened. The guard kind of came over and took the guy that should have been Dallin Levitt, the punt protector's guy. And so that's an easy fix, and something that everyone immediately on that punt protection team realized what happened. And so I think that we see the same personnel out there for today, at least. If it continues to become an issue, sure. But for now, I don't think it's as much of a concern as it would have been in years past. Going back to the defense, we talked a lot about like them playing more man, and because of that, it put Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas on the same side of the field a lot more. And the two of them said that really kind of changed their whole game because it allowed them to talk more, and allowing the two of them to talk more helped the entire defense. Let's hear from both Jai and Sul this week.
Always got to be on the same page. Most of the time, me and him was to the side, playing man on the receivers. So I was just telling him what I thought I saw and how it should play out. And he was just like, okay. He's trying to play ball from there.
Is that something that has been missing?
I don't know if it's been missing, but overall, maybe
yeah. It took a step up.
Yeah.
Well, last week they had me traveling, so we had to be on the same page as to where we was going at all times, because we didn't want any coverage busts like week 1. So, me and Sue was always talking like, I gotta know where he's at, he gotta know where I'm at, and we always gotta see how we gonna play this because, me and him are like, we both see the whole field. Some corners are like strictly on their man, but me and Sue, we see the whole field, so we play off of each other really well.
It seemed like in the past 2 or through the first few weeks, not having Rasul Douglas and Jair Alexander able to communicate more was a detriment to this entire defense. And you saw how much it helped just by simply putting them on the same side of the field together. And they were able to be on the same side of the field together because of the way they played man and having Jair Alexander shadow a guy. And so just simply doing that again today could make a huge difference. Something else that really was stressed this week with the Packers was getting back to having fun and remembering that they need to enjoy playing the game. That was Matt LaFleur's message to his team all week. And he wanted them to just sort of play loose and play free. And we saw a concerted effort from the guys in the locker room and at practice to do exactly that. I know there's been some discourse about this subject on social media, and I think a lot of it is just the product of their time. These players this generation is different than maybe the players in the 90s or the players in the 60s. And you see, you have to coach them differently as well. And when you play a little more loose, you can play a little better. And as Aaron Rodgers said, which we're about to hear from, that also means you're prepared. And so Matt LaFleur's message this week, will it show itself on the field today? That remains to be seen, but the guys at least took it to heart.
I came in after my treatment, and the locker room was pretty lively. So I don't know if that was seeing the sun for the first time in a few days, or Captain Blood cutting practice a little bit. But either way, good energy today. We just want to get back out there. So being in this league is we get another chance. The tough part is we got to deal with all the feelings for a week after a bad performance.
Matt said this morning that his message to the team was to get back to having fun. What does that look like?
Got to pull some more pranks, I think.
Do you pull the pranks?
I usually get blamed. Can't say it's always me.
I think having fun is the biggest thing. I think that's what all of us do. We all feed off each other energy. We all got swag to ourselves. And when we're not swaggy and having fun, it kind of just messes up the game. It's still a kid's game, And that's when we first started playing it because it was fun, so it still should be fun to this day.
Going after last week, obviously, it wasn't a fun loss. I sat there, I was talking to my wife, I was like, we got to come up with something. I got to get back in the groove of it. I need to get my swag back. And so every day before I'm leaving, I'm just writing a little note, putting it on the mirror, reminding myself either today was just focus on just the present. Whatever play it is, not the past, not the future, this play. Yesterday was just have fun with every single part of the game. And so, I think it's been paying off. Even Preston was out there happy. And, to get a smile out of him, I'll just mess with them. But, everybody has been having fun. There's been a good energy, and it's awesome.
Do you kind of need that to loosen a team back up?
I think, it's not necessarily we need it now more than ever. I just think it's more I think we all kind of realize, and for me as an individual, it's supposed to be a lot of fun. We're in the NFL. We're playing football. And, as hard and as crazy it can be at times, I think, trying to be as positive as you can, as much as you can, I think everybody feeds off that. So, everybody's not going to have a great day every day. Everybody's not going to be positive every day. But if we get the whole team trying to be positive and trying to have fun, for those people who aren't having a good day, those other people will bring them along. So you can tell a lot of guys are making a conscious effort.
Winning is fun, Bill. So whenever you're winning, you're always going to have more fun. I think a lot of times that's an important message. But you're having fun when you're loose. When you're loose, that means you're prepared. When you're prepared, that means you put in the time. So it starts with putting in the time, and there's an expectation that everybody's going to be ready to play Sunday, and that confidence will come from the preparation this week.
Are you still on?
So, will they be prepared? That is the question. They felt like they were prepared before the Jets, and they clearly were not. I know that we have a couple more questions coming in. If anybody has any more questions, go ahead and pop them in now. We'll get to those before we sign off here. Inactives will be out in about an hour. There is still no update yet. I was just looking at an update on David Bakhtiari. That's still sort of up in the air. They're going to see how he feels after warm-ups and just go from there. As to who else might be on it, will Sammy Watkins play? Again, I believe he will, but again, that's going to just kind of be a temperature check after warm-ups to see how he feels, how that hamstring feels. Given the need for him today, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to push it. And Sue asked, will they be prepared? That is the question. That is the question. Because as we said, they thought they were prepared for the Jets, and they clearly were not. Something to note, I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about kind of counteracting the Washington's front four. Today is National Tight Ends Day. And so, do we see the Packers take advantage of that? That's actually something the Packers did last year to move the ball against this Washington team, is really get Robert Tonyan involved. I think Robert Tonyan had one of his best days as a Packer against this Washington team last year, because when you have the tight end, you can sort of, you don't have to go downfield. He can get open quicker. He can help block and then curl around into the flat. And grab 6, 7 yard chunks and move the ball. So I think we see a lot from Bobby Tunyon again this week. He was the leading receiver last week and he had 10 catches for 90 yards, which is the most by a Packers tight end in Packers club history. And which is they've had some good tight ends come through there. Um, so I think we see him get even more involved this week on National Tight Ends Day. Darren says, "Do you have any trade rumors?" Nothing that I would feel confident saying is for sure going to happen. I know the Claypool name has been thrown around there a lot. I would keep an eye on DJ Moore out of Carolina, especially since Carolina is willing to pack up anyone and ship them out right now. Um, the trade deadline is November 1st. And so do we see some of these moves happen in the next couple of weeks? I think that hearing Packers name attached to some players, I wouldn't put too much stock in because Brad Gutekunst is going to call everyone just to ask. He's going to call everyone to ask what the price would be. So, if you hear, well, the Packers called about so and so, they probably did. But, does that mean they're really going to go after them? That's the question. Probably not more often than yes. Frank says this game comes down to line play and O-line. It does. This is a trenches league. And that's what held me up when I was making the pick for this game is that, like we said, top to bottom, this Packers team should defeat this Washington team. But this is a trenches league. And in the trenches right now, this Packers O-line is suspect, and they're going against a very, very strong Washington front line. Can they get off to a fast start there to sort of knock them back on their heels and force them to play deep? That's the question, and it could be the difference in the game. Well, guys, we're going to continue to get ready here in DC for the Packers versus Commanders kickoff. I know Tom Silverstein will have his live blog starting here soon, and then Ryan Wood will have inactives in about an hour. So stay tuned, looking for that as well. And then Pete Doherty and I will come to you on Facebook Live after the game as well with full coverage on Packers News of Packers versus Washington. So stay tuned to PackersNews.com all day. Thanks so much, guys.